The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining me on the Urban Kube this morning. It is 10 o'clock on Monday, 18th of March, and I'm Shemiza, taking all the way up to 12 o'clock on Inspire FM. We're going loud and live across to Luton surrounding areas, Peterborough, Sheffield and Nottingham this morning. We are also Facebook Live, but we have the Urban Kube sign up because there's nobody actually in the studio with me this morning. The wonderful guests on the show this morning are going to be joining me live across the phone from London and Manchester, inshallah, this morning. Now, the show will be repeated 8 p.m. this evening, as well as you can catch all the conversations back on iTunes and Spotify. Today's show is we are going to be talking to two fantastic women who are really making their mark in the world of journalism, writing and sport and art as well this morning. I'll be speaking to no other than the very, very fabulous Hanan Abdel Khalek. She's a freelance multimedia journalist, writer, podcaster and filmmaker, and she's graduated from the Muslim Women in Media cohort from the University of California. She's also currently writing a utopian novel. She'll be talking to me about her experience in California as part of the Muslim Women in Media cohort, and actually speaking to me why she felt it was necessary to go all the way from London to California to actually be part of this initiative, which is quite interesting and quite fitting in relation to today's show, because we will be also reflecting and thinking very much in regards to the horrific, awful massacre that happened on Friday, which has really had a massive big impact on the hearts of not just only the Muslim community, but the wider communities, not just New Zealand, but across the world as well. We'll be reflecting on the Christchurch masjid and sort of reflecting on how we as communities can kind of strengthen our relationship with those around us, and how to kind of deal with the grief and the shocking news, which for me has really hit home this morning. And it's kind of, and I really did think to myself, I'm going to be going onto the show this morning, and am I going to be able to sit through 2 hours and to be able to kind of discuss what happened at Christchurch Mosque and to be able to kind of keep my decorum. But alhamdulillah, listening to Brother Tarek this morning on the Rise and Shine show, when he read out a wonderful piece by a Chinese sister, Rivat, really gave me a lot of strength. And I'm going to be sharing that bit of writing that he read out this morning on the show as well. He's going to be joining me this morning to talk about things that we could potentially do as a community, how we can kind of address this awful incident with our children. As parents, it's very difficult to kind of keep children away from the media when incidents like this happen, and how do you kind of carefully tell them the information without giving them too much detail. And I'd really like to find out from yourselves this morning how you've been able to kind of address the balance there with your own children. The telephone number for the show is we're actually not taking calls. I do apologise. It's WhatsApp. So it's 07779 481822. Now, on the show this morning, it is National day of something or another. And today we have companies that care. Yes, companies that care. Are you part of a company that is actually going the extra mile? Are they showing that they care? There is a real dynamic changes in the way people are actually working at the moment, where companies are becoming a little bit more holistic in their approach to having a good, healthy work-based environment. And it'd be really interesting to know, what is your company doing to make sure that they care? And also, it's National Awkward Moments. Yeah, National Awkward Moments, people. Have you ever experienced an awkward moment? As a parent, I experience them every single day with the children. So I'd love to find out from you if you've been impacted by any awkward moments. I wonder whether my guests have had any awkward moments, and the guests will be joining me after 10:30. I'm going to be joined by the very tremendous Hanan Abdel Khalek. Now, she has joined me on the show in the past, and so I have great pleasure in having her joining me back. And in particular, on today's show, because as a freelance multimedia journalist, it'd be very interesting to get her viewpoint on the way the media has portrayed and projected what had happened at Christchurch Mosque. So it'd be very interesting for her to kind of give me her views on that. And also, she is somebody who's very passionate about ethical fashion, because she's creating a documentary on the ethical fashion industry. And this is quite interesting because there was another climate strike. Children went out to the lovely town of Luton, took time off school. Yes, they did. And they did it for a great cause. And that was the climate march, which happened in Luton as well. So I wonder how many parents let their little ones take a day off school to do that. It was Thursday, that's when it happened. She'll be talking to us about mindful consumer decisions, in particular to global warming, and giving us some tips and advice on how we can kind of possibly slow the process of fast fashion buying. Fashion is always something that everybody is kind of drawn to. So you know what? We need to kind of slow down a little bit. And she hopefully will tell us how to do that. Now, I came across a very interesting article which says that there is a study claiming that working mums are more likely to have obese children. Yep, you heard it. Working mums are more likely to have obese children. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that article, in particular with a mother who's actually driving up Olympic success. She's a working mother driving her children to Olympic success. And I'm talking about no other than Sumera Asghar, who is part of Omanza Art. She's a contemporary abstract artist, and she showcased her work all the way from Manchester to the heart of Luton at the Bute Street Film Festival event. I had the pleasure of kind of stumbling across her work by a wonderful lady by the name of Ray Lever, and I saw it on her Instagram account. It was the most beautiful abstract art piece, and I was just very, very taken aback by it. So I have great pleasure in speaking to Sumera later on in the show, and she is a former national basketball player. She's also a mother of two very talented children in kickboxing and taekwondo. Have I said that correct? I think I have. Who are actually competing nationally and even getting ready to prepare themselves for the Olympics. Oh, yeah. So it'd be very interesting to find out what her thoughts are on this study that claims working mums are more likely to have obese children. It is National Companies That Care Day. And I wonder whether this comes in line with another article I came across, which said that a string of British firms are switching over to a 4-day working week. 4-day working week. Does that sound like a working week that you would like to get involved with? Gosh, wouldn't it be absolutely fantastic if you had a 4-day working week? My goodness, giving you a little bit more time to kind of do the things that you want to do as well. Having more time with your family, more relaxing time for yourself and having more of like a healthy work-based balance, mashallah. Now, you are listening to the Urban Kube. It is Monday, 18th of March, and it's 10 minutes past 10. It's an absolute pleasure to have you have you join us this morning. Do tell us where you're actually listening in from, and we would love to hear from you. It is the WhatsApp number is 07779481822. Now, my guests, Hanan Abdel Khalek and Sumera Asghar, will be joining me after 10:30. But in the studio right now, I'm actually joined by Brother Tariq. Now, Brother Tariq is a voice that you're all familiar with because he is the man behind the mic on the Rise and Shine show. So it's an absolute pleasure to have him join the show this morning. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm very, very well, brother. It's been quite a difficult weekend, a very, very testing Friday. So I was a little bit nervous this morning coming onto the show because I think it kind of hit me basically what had happened on Friday, the loss of 51, I believe, lives, precious lives, and the Christchurch Mosque in New Zealand. I was listening to your show this morning and I was really, really taken aback by the most beautiful, beautiful writing by a sister in China. And I'm going to be sharing that piece later on. And it kind of gave me a lot of strength knowing that our brothers and sisters and those beautiful children, inshallah, will automatically have a place in Jannah. So I thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that this morning. And I don't know if there's anybody else listening into the show who'd actually heard Brother Tariq reading that beautiful piece. It really did give me a lot of peace in my heart. But brother, Inspire FM, obviously on Friday, we had the Friday Night Live show, which this was a topic of conversation. It's a conversation that it's being had in every Muslim household, locally, nationally, and internationally. And how does a community kind of deal with something so big as this? How do we move forward as a community?
Assalamu alaikum, listeners. To be honest, there's no real right or wrong answer in this. In something like this, to be honest, I think when reading that letter and just generally speaking to a lot of people, I think we're blessed with the fact that we have iman, we have belief in the hereafter, and we have belief that, of course, these 51 and of course there's a number of other seriously injured individuals who, of course, which may lead to death, because of course at them initially it was 49 on Friday, and of course 2 other people have died since as well. But of course it's the belief of knowing that they've gone to a better place, and even listening to, I'm not sure if you got a chance to listen to there's a BBC interview with the gentleman who's wheelchair based, and his wife came in front of him, and the bullets actually got her rather than the actual gentleman, and when he was talking and you listen to his voice and you listen to the words he's saying and how he's saying, this is the way we lived our life. My wife was always there for me and I was always there for her. So it's something that he expected, in the sense of, obviously, I knew my wife would always, in any sort of danger, in any sort of problems, would always come in front of me. But obviously happiness in the sense of knowing that my wife has gone to paradise. And I think it's that knowledge. And actually, I had this experience shared with an uncle recently. Is a neighbor of my brother's, who lost his daughter on return from Hajj, and I was speaking to him often, and what he would say was, he goes, I'm so glad I'm a Muslim, because knowing the fact that, obviously, and it's the way his daughter passed away, they were at home getting ready to welcome her back, and of course then the news coming that she's actually passed away on the airplane journey. And he would often say to me that I'm so glad that I'm a Muslim, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me this faith, this iman of knowing that my daughter has gone to a better place. And if I didn't have this, I would never be able to move on. And I think, to be honest, alhamdulillah, we're very fortunate in these instances that when something like this happens, which can't be described in any other word than, it's a tragedy, and it's catastrophic of what's taken place. But we find solace in our hearts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the way they were written to be, their lives were written to be taken, and nothing, no moment could have changed that. There was instances where I think some people are sharing stories of how they were intending to go to that masjid for Jummah, for whatever reason they couldn't go, and there was instances where they've gone to another place or they were late for Jummah. So there's loads of stories which will come out, but the people who have passed away were those individuals whose life was written to be taken on that day with that moment. And of course that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, and we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom behind it. And then you hear the many stories of people actually becoming Muslims due to seeing this, and actually giving the encouragement of being able to look into Islam. So there's Allah's wisdom in this, and to be honest, we will never understand Allah's wisdom. The only thing we can do is, of course, accept it and know that, most definitely they've gone to a better place.
Alhamdulillah, and Ameen to everything that you've said there. It was quite difficult for me this morning. I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to sit. I even WhatsApped you, Brother Tariq, I don't know how I'm going to sit through the show without getting emotional. But
of course,
we have a job to get on with, and community radio, I think, does come under what I would like to say about companies that care, companies that care,
definitely.
Inspire FM. And we do have a very responsible role, alhamdulillah, in making sure that our community is being looked after, and also making sure that information is presented about what things are going on in the town. Now, today there is a peace vigil that's happening.
Yeah, definitely.
So, brother, tell us a little bit more about this peace vigil. What is it and what's its purpose?
Yep, the peace vigil is being organised by Luton Council of Faith, and again, this has actually been done. I remember going to a few peace vigils when there's various different things that have happened within the community, and the Luton Council of Faiths have decided to hold a peace vigil for of course all those who have passed away in New Zealand. A peace vigil essentially is a moment of coming together and remembering any sort of loss or any sort of tragedy that's taken place, and showing support and saying that we are here together. And alhamdulillah, I think, to be honest, it's a beautiful way of kind of showing those thoughts. Obviously, everybody is probably feeling various different things, and they're keeping those thoughts within themselves and really kind of in whatever walks of life they're doing. But this opportunity actually allows you to get together with the community, and due to obviously the Luton Council of Faith organising it, there will be people of different faiths there, people of different backgrounds, people of no faith will be coming together, showing the support, saying that obviously this is something.
Solidarity.
Exactly.
Solidarity is key. We have seen an outpouring of love, understanding, and coming together, and empathy.
Of course.
And empathy is very key. And, the wonderful town of Luton, mashallah, it's a beautiful place when there are unfortunate circumstances or incidents that occur across the world internationally. Our community does come together. So the Luton Council of Faith are doing this peace vigil, and it's an opportunity for people to kind of express how they're feeling as well, and to know that there are people that care, that understand, and want to reach out to. And it has been very beautiful to see the number of wonderful stories that we've seen where, the Sikh community in New Zealand doing seva, looking after the families that have been affected. We've seen the Jewish community the Muslim community raised money for the Pittsburgh victims, and the Jewish community are now returning that support and care. We're seeing people across the country who are not Muslim, who are standing outside masjids and protecting, guarding the doors and putting signs up, flowers, messages, so many beautiful ways of connecting and showing love and harmony. And may this continue. We do need to work together as communities. We shouldn't cut ourselves off. Some people would say, you know what, Shemiza, that's a lot easier said than done, because there are people who are frightened, and naturally, and also children are impacted by this. And we were discussing as parents, we were talking about awkward moments with children, and then we came to that we were also discussing, well, trying to keep this information away from our children. How do you protect your children from news like this? And Brother Tariq, you had a story that you were sharing with me about your little boy. You were quite surprised. Like, how did he find out?
Yeah, definitely. It was, to be honest, on Friday evening, I was having a conversation with him, and he mentioned to me that obviously this has taken place, and it was actually on the way to the masjid. We were going to the masjid, and he was saying this is obviously taking place in New Zealand, and it's one of those things where, to be honest, in this day and age, again, children have their own tablets, and they have all sorts of various different technology which connects them to the internet, and no doubt, majority of the stuff that's out there, they will get to find out. But I think from a children's perspective, my own, again, personal example, again, everybody probably has their own approach, is to sit down with your children and tell them about it. And again, I think the other side, which is also so important, to get rid of that fear and that kind of anxiety that a lot of people probably have, is to tell them the positive stories, and of course reminding them, of course, and showing them pictures. And I showed my son the picture of the guy that was standing outside the masjid in Manchester, saying, "I'm your friend, and I will stand outside and guard you whilst you pray." And you look at that and you think, what, subhanAllah, that is so beautiful. And to be honest, images like those and things around the world where you see this kind of thing and think to yourself, what, there are so many, there are people out there who will generally have hate, and they will have a lot of animosity, and they will have all sorts of these absolutely horrible thoughts in their mind of doing all sorts of evil in the world. But there are also people out there who are peace and loving, and who are there for each other. And to be honest, that really brings the peace and comfort to your heart.
And I think there are more people that care.
Definitely.
There are more people that care than hate.
Definitely.
And we need to build on that care. We need to build on that love. And we need to build on that solidarity. And I think that's a wonderful example, Brother Tariq, that you've just given about you showing him a positive image of the gentleman in Manchester. That's a wonderful way of kind of enlightening your child that, look, there are people that care. This is a white man, an older gentleman outside a masjid with a sign. And you know what? And that's showing an image. It's showing some words as well. And it's showing somebody in action. And I think that's the way forward. And I think that's a great example. And I'm going to do that as well. For my own daughter, I wasn't aware that, because I don't have phones, they do have a tablet, and she mentioned something about New Zealand. I'm like, sorry, what did you say? She goes, there was a massacre in New Zealand, wasn't there, Mummy? And I'm like, how do you know? Oh, I've signed up to a particular news stream on my tablet, so I know what the headlines are. 11 years old. And I was like, okay. So then obviously I'm having to explain it on the level of an 11-year-old, but then I've got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old also in that same space, and having to kind of address it in language,
of course,
that's to their age too. And then I just give up, because I'm just thinking, gosh, how do you turn this? How do you word this so that it's in simple, child-friendly language? And if I'd known what you'd done, I'd do that. I think that is a wonderful way of saying, look, there's hatred, but also there is people that care. And we have to move forward. And as a community, we do need to move forward. And the Peace Vigil is one way of moving forward. MashaAllah. Luton Council of Faith, Peace Vigil happening. Where is it again, Brother Tariq?
It's happening outside the town hall today at 2 p.m. I'd really encourage anybody out there who's currently listening, who is available to come down and show that support. Because, of course, there'll possibly be a lot of, and to be honest, a lot of the Peace Vigils I've been to previously, there's a lot of non-Muslims and people of other faiths and no faiths, but not many Muslims that actually kind of attend these things. And I think we should do our bit as well. And again, this is that
because it's not something that our communities are, are aware of, or accustomed to?
Yeah, I think accustomed to is probably more likely. Awareness-wise, I think majority of people do tend to find out. It gets across social media, and again, we mentioned on the radio and stuff. But I think it's maybe something strange in the sense that it's not something that they're used to, and it's the whole concept of Peace Vigil seems a bit strange to a lot of people. But it's, the concept itself is literally to come together and share the pain of whatever somebody's going through. But just to mention one other thing, I think is quite important before we come to the end of the break. I think as Muslims, one of the key responsibilities that we have in this community and this society that we live in is to make sure that we build those relationships with people of other faiths and no faith, and again, and making sure that we know our neighbors, and concepts such as the mosque open day that tends to happen every year. A lot of the masjids are getting on board with that. I think are absolutely amazing. And as well as opening our doors to our mosque, we should open the doors to our houses, to our neighbors, and make sure we have those communications. The only reason that gentleman in Manchester or anywhere else will stand outside a masjid and protect that masjid or any other place of worship is if they know you and they understand you and they realize that this person is not what the media is making out to be or what this gentleman assumed in New Zealand. And I think it's a very important responsibility on our shoulders to make sure that we do of course let people know about Islam and give them the true picture of what it is and show them that love, show them that openness, and then when they see that warmth, inshallah ta'ala, they'll give that warmth back as well.
Inshallah, it is about building those bridges and walking on that bridge as well, right to the end of it.
Definitely,
and we're heading to a break. Did you like the way I linked that in?
Very nice.
Thank you so very much, Brother Tariq, for joining me this morning. And the Rise and Shine show, folks, you know where it's at. It's every morning. What time?
7 to 9.
7 to 9, and you'll be back on the Rise and Shine show tomorrow. As well. So we're heading off to a break. It is the Urban Kube. The time is 10:25. I'll be joined by Hanan Abdel Khalek, who is going to be talking to me about her being part of the Muslim Women in Media at the University of California. So do join me straight after the break, and we'll be having more great creative conversations with awesome guests. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Hamza. Continue listening to Inspire FM 105.1 FM.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. It is 10:30, Monday 18th of March, and you are listening to the Urban Kube with me, Shemiza, taking it all the way up to 12 o'clock this morning. It is it's been a very testing weekend, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I was struggling to find the words to reflect what had happened on Friday in New Zealand, where our beautiful brothers and sisters lost their lives to a terrorist attack, and it really, really kind of made me really question humanity. And I can really say that I'm really glad I've come into work this morning and I've had the pleasure of kind of, being around people and just continuing with my day-to-day routine. And it's always a pleasure being on the Urban Kube, where I'm connecting with wonderful listeners like yourselves and also my wonderful, wonderful guests as well. So today's show is obviously in memory of those dear brothers and sisters that have been shaheed in this terrorist attack, and we're using today's show as also to kind of reflect and also think of ways where we can engage furthermore with our communities as well. On the show this morning, I had the pleasure of speaking to Brother Tariq. Brother Tariq talked to us about a peace vigil that's happening at 2 o'clock at the Town Hall in Luton. The Town Hall is a spot where many people across Luton are very familiar with, inshallah. And this peace vigil has been organised by the Luton Council of Faith with the purpose of just connecting with the Muslim community, but the wider community as well. Now, if you're somebody who's feeling slightly isolated, who wants to talk to somebody and wants to reach out, maybe go down to the peace vigil. But if you don't want to go there, please do connect with us here in the studio. We're all ears. We're here to support you and as family, inshallah. Now, on today's show, as always, I'm joined by a wonderful selection of guests, and one of the guests I'm joined with today is joining me all the way from London. She is a journalist, writer and filmmaker, and she's graduated from the Muslim Women Media cohort from the University of California, and she's currently writing a utopian novel. She'll be joining us to talk about her passion for writing, her views on the trending stories, and we'll also be finding out about a documentary that she's been doing on ethical fashion as well. But apart from that, we're also going to be joined by another fantastic guest who is actually driving her children to Olympic success. Now, I'm going to be talking to no other than Sumera Asghar, and she is part of Emanza Art. She's a contemporary abstract artist whose work I'd actually stumbled across in the heart of Luton at the Bute Street Film Festival. Now, I'm going to be talking to her about all things motherhood, art, and getting your children to Olympic standards. My goodness. And also talking to her about an article, which basically a study that claimed that working mums are more likely to have obese children. What? My goodness. So she'll be talking to me about that. On today's show, we're talking national days as well. Companies that care and awkward moments. There are two national days. So if you have had an awkward moment that you want to share with us, awkward moment in whatever capacity, that could be in the public, at work, amongst family, or your children. The Mother's Planet, the show, was such a funny, rib-tickling show, Sister Neelam's show, and she was talking about all the silly, crazy things our children say. So maybe that might inspire you, if you listen to that show, to share with me your thoughts on that. And companies that care. Companies that care. Are you part of a company that cares, or are you somebody that runs a company that's doing something a little bit beyond, above and beyond for your employees? And the reason why I'm mentioning this National Day is because there seems to be more and more firms switching over to a 4-day working week. That sounds great, doesn't it? My goodness. You know what? I'd be loving that. But I've got no reason to complain because I work part-time anyway. So, but if you're working in a, say, 5-day week, do you think it's a good idea switching over to a 4-day week? These are some of the things that we're talking about on today's show as well. So do get in contact with us on 07779 481822. Now, I wonder whether these are some of the things that my wonderful next guest over the phone this morning is able to answer. I'm talking about no other than Hanan Abdel Khalek. She is a freelance multimedia journalist, writer, and podcaster, as well as filmmaker. She graduated from the Muslim Women in Media cohort from the University of California. She's currently also writing a utopian novel. Thank you so very much, Hanan, for joining us this morning.
No problem. Salam. Thank you for that really nice introduction.
Bless you. Now, you're a guest of the show, mashallah, just before you went to California, you actually joined us on the show and you were talking about this trip. So, mashallah, you've made the trip and you're back safe and sound.
I am back, yes. It has been like a long journey and a lot of intense moments, but I'm really grateful that, I got through it. And hopefully, this documentary will take off and good things will come from it.
Inshallah. Now, Hanan, tell us, why did you feel it necessary to go all the way to California for a Muslim Women in Media collective? I mean, could you not find anything down the road in London?
I mean, there are so many amazing opportunities in London, but for this one, it was actually by accident. A friend of mine messaged me and said, look, you should apply for this. And I applied, and I was the only one from the UK, actually, to be involved, because all the women involved, and some men, actually, they were all America-based. So I was the only one that was kind of going internationally. But I think it was a really important step because there are many different conversations to be had surrounding Muslims in the media.
Of course.
In London, for example, in the UK, as opposed to America. It's a completely different climate.
Wow.
So I think I provided like a very different perspective, which was really needed in those conversations. So I was glad I was there. And I learned so much about their narrative, their climate, and how it's different. So I think it was a good collaboration.
And what is the differences that they are being projected with in comparison to the narrative here in the UK?
I think everything in America in general is so much more overt and over the top. I think like institutionalized racism and Islamophobia is like a global problem right now. But I think everything is sensationalized times a million in America. So I think everything obviously will be more intense naturally as well. So that you hear about a lot more sort of overt attacks and really explicit things like the shootings, you know, which is such a horrific reality that keeps happening across the board. So, yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the conversations that they kind of had, there was quite similar conversations in terms of that institutionalized aspect. But generally speaking, I feel like problems that we have in the UK, it's slightly more subtle, if you like.
Right, okay.
And that could be a problem, though, because of that there's like an element of, it's almost like you can't overtly pinpoint that something can be Islamophobic or racist because it's so subtle.
Why do we think it's so subtle, though? What is it that is...
My theory is that, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like in the UK we still have an element, and this is not, I can't say all of the UK. I'm going to talk about London because I know London and I live in London. I can't talk about the whole
She's a Londoner.
But yes, through and through. I do think that it's almost like you can feel Islamophobia subtly bubbling up from people. But I think it's that thing of like people are... It's embarrassing to be seen as a racist. It's embarrassing to be Islamophobic. It's embarrassing. So I think people are almost afraid to show their prejudices, which is, I don't know, like obviously it's a bad thing in general. Like there should be no prejudice,
of course,
point blank. But I think people are more emboldened in America because of their, you know, their leadership and
their history,
their structures, and their history and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's more difficult to be as overt here, if that makes sense.
Right, and may it not bubble over to the extreme as we see in America.
Right.
As a journalist, mashallah, you work as a multimedia journalist, and what's the difference as say just an ordinary journalist?
I don't know, you know. No, I'm joking. But do you know what?
Is it just a fancy title you've given yourself, darling? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it might be that. No. I feel like nowadays, I think everyone to some extent is a multimedia journalist, just because there are so many different avenues and tunnels to tell stories and you know, to tell a narrative. You've got podcasts now. You have YouTube. You've got, you know, SoundCloud. You've got Facebook. You've got Instagram stories. You've got all these different avenues and ways that you can kind of access people and talk and have these amazing conversations and tell the narrative. So I guess that's what it really means. It's just multiple avenues.
Is that a tool that you've embraced more so since coming back from the Muslim Women in Media cohort at the University of California?
Definitely. I feel like before there was such a kind of, I don't know, like a very static view of what journalism is. And I think, you know, the world is becoming so dynamic when it comes to social media and how people are using it and how people are accessing each other and how stories are spread. That everything is through social media. Essentially, it's become such a fundamental part of journalism, and I think, you know, to access that and to use it, and you see so many different people across the board, not just journalists, using social media to get their message across, using their platform to get their message across, and I think it's become one of the most effective tools.
It clearly has. It's a really, really, I mean, amazing platform. It has its good, it has its bad, and it has its ugly, and we know the control some people have using Twitter effectively or ineffectively. Now,
I actually deleted my Twitter, but I've just made a new one.
I know, I just noticed you're following me, and I've got to kind of like put the post up for the show. Guy, on that note, do you want people to follow you back? What is your Twitter handle?
Fantastic. So at the moment, I'm Hanan, I think, across all social media platforms, which is great.
I like the ways that you say that. Hanan, I think. So what is Hanan?
Yeah, there could be a comma there, or it could be just like non-stop, you know?
Are you sort of like very pedantic about grammar?
Oh, no. It's just more about the joke of like, Hanan, I think. Like, is there a question mark there? Like, do I know? Am I really Hanan? Who knows?
That's clever. Is that what you learned in America?
I did, yes, just that.
So what is it that you've brought back from this collective? I'd really like to know, because are you able to filter through media more effectively? Are you very more succinct in how you project yourself verbally?
I think definitely I think it gave me confidence, just in the sense that, you forget when you're in a sea of voices, you can, especially like on Twitter and so many other places, you forget how valid and how important an opinion can be, and how your world perspective, your world view is necessary and needed, and to kind of exchange that exchange between people, that really was what I found was important. It's not a vanity thing in this field. It's really about learning and kind of telling stories and understanding and just making the world a better place. So I think that's what I came away with, more confidence in our ability individually as humans and what we can each bring to the table.
Inshallah, and more of it, and more of it now, more so than any other time. Friday really changed history. It was a very, very dark day for the Ummah and the world, I believe. But it really, really created different types of dialogue. And we're seeing different types of language in the media more so than ever. For the first time, I believe, we get to see the term terrorist connected with the man that did this atrocity, the murder of 51 people. And that word was used by the political leader, Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And it was, yeah, baby. I've got to say that.
She really is.
Oh, gosh, a woman in politics, totally, totally changing the dynamics of the way we perceive politics, with more empathy, with more compassion, with more understanding, and with a bit of a real true face. Inshallah. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Jacinda Ardern and basically what she has been able to do. She is the youngest ever elected Prime Minister of New Zealand, and it's been very, very enlightening to see the way she took this responsibility as a leader, but not any type of leader, a great leader with heart, and embraced the Muslim community as us. She referred to them as us. They are one of us. The language that she used was just very heartfelt and very compassionate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very she's like an anomaly at the moment in politics. You don't associate politicians with compassion,
or empathy,
or empathy, or anything related to being human.
Because politics is quite robotic, isn't it? It's quite you have a job, get on with it.
Absolutely, and I think people are forgotten in that process, and humanity is forgotten in that process, and that's completely contradictory to the whole cause, because it's about the management of people. Like, this is how, that's initially, if you look at the root of what we're supposed to be doing, we're just supposed to be managing people well and managing our lives well. So I think what she's done is quite transformative. But I think also seeing many more female leadership, women in leadership, has been transformative. Even, like the way, sorry to say this, but like the way Michelle Obama has really kind of superseded her husband in a lot of the work that she's done.
Of course.
And I think, time and time again, women are proving that you can be a female and you can have compassion, and you can also be a really great leader.
An influencer in politics. Absolutely. And make a difference and take charge and empower others in doing so, empower women and men equally. Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she's promised to cover the funeral costs of the 51 Christchurch terror victims, which was a very, very giving gesture. when you heard that, Hanan, what were your thoughts?
I mean, it's a beautiful gesture, but also I kind of felt like it's so sad that we find that amazing. You know, like it's actually devastating that, you know, this should be like the basic, like this should happen with our leaders. And so the first thing was like, wow, that's lovely, that's amazing, that's transformative. But at the same time, it's almost like, no, we should be better than this. You know, this should happen naturally. You know, as a natural reaction. But that's what, you know, leadership is all about. It's about looking after the people that are in your responsibility.
Of course.
So yeah, I guess that's kind of the thoughts that kind of came across my mind.
Now, she also, amongst many others, have kind of changed the way things are worded when it comes to the Muslim community. When incidents of like this have occurred across the world, they've never really been called a terror attack. If it's a white assailant. So how did it make you feel when you actually heard this as a terror attack?
You kind of get a sigh of relief, because it's almost like, I think people are tired of having to scream and shout about like how there's such a disproportionate use of language in the media in association with, like, let's say, white supremacy, and in association with Muslims in the media who have been reported to have done a crime. So I think having somebody in such a powerful position to make that clear distinction, that's a great sign, and it's transformative, and hopefully things are starting to change. But at the same time, you still have like so many problematic articles coming out in the Daily Mail and all sorts that are,
because papers need to sell, right? Papers have to sell.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's terrifying that people are buying this crap, to be honest.
Was there a headline in particular that kind of shocked you by one of these newspapers, the language in particular?
Oh, I think one of them said something like the angel boy who became a killer, something like that. The way it was framed was just almost like, you know, this is unbelievable. We can't possibly fathom that this wonderful blonde little person became this cruel monster, you know? It's just it's very much like it feels a bit villainy. And the way that language is being utilized and weaponized, it's just creating a comic book effect, really.
That it's quite filmic.
Yeah,
that it's not real.
It's not real life, you know. And I'll be really honest. I don't engage with these articles too much anymore. I mean, I only just got Twitter again. I had to take a break from it all, because I think it can really desensitize you.
Of course.
Make you just, you know, bombarded with words. And I don't think it's good for us, our self-esteem either. You know, somebody made a really amazing point that, like, we essentially as Muslims, it can feel like we are being emotionally abused by the state, and the language that is used about us, and the language we are reading about ourselves, of course, is going to impact us. So I personally I choose to not subscribe to that much, and I don't really read into it. So I like to know what's going on, but I don't.
Then where do you get your opinions from then? How do you then get your knowledge of news? I mean, where should it come from?
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? I'm still kind of battling with that myself, but I think...
Should you be the one creating the news then?
Absolutely. I think everyone should put me in their newsroom.
You've definitely got the face for it.
I do think that one of the most important things, though, and I think a lot of Muslim journalists are saying this, is that we need more Muslim journalists in the newsrooms, because there is someone setting the narrative. There is someone telling the story. And to them, because it might not impact their life, it might not impact them as a group of people, it doesn't mean much. But when there's someone who it actually means everything to them, the language that's used about them, they're going to be more careful and mindful of it. So to answer the question of, like, where do we draw the line, I think it's just a mental health thing. It's really like, you know what, taking the news, we need to know what's going on, and we should be knowledgeable, but not at the detriment of our health and self-esteem and well-being.
You know, Instagram, social media was down last week. Did you cope? Were you able to deal with it, Hanan?
I didn't even notice. It's terrible, but okay. So I work full time, right? And I was fast asleep when that was happening. So,
So was I, darling. So was I.
I kind of feel sad that I missed out on this like global thing. You know, I was like, oh man, you know, I've been left out. But yeah.
Oh, so you didn't feel that pang
not
of
at all, not at all.
Oh.
Also, I literally have technology problems all the time, so that's kind of my life anyway. So I'm just used to it now.
Why did they send you to California? I just do not know. You've got technology issues.
Nobody knows. But it worked out for the best. So that was good.
Oh, dear me. Now, we're going to be talking about awkward moments. It's National Awkward Moment Day, Hanan, and we're going to be catching up with you. Have you had any awkward moments?
My whole life. Everything is awkward.
So we're going to talk to you about that after the break because you will be still staying with us, inshallah. We're also going to be talking about Companies That Care Day. Now, this is something that you're really quite familiar with, Hanan, because you're doing a documentary, inshallah, on ethical fashion. So this is an area that you're very passionate about. So we're going to be finding out about, getting some fashion tips from you as well, but not fast fashion ones, hopefully. So we're going to be really getting the know-how from Hanan. And we're also going to be talking to you about British firms switching over to a 4-day working week. Is that the way forward? Is that what we should be doing more of? If you'd like to join in with any of the conversation, join us on 07779 481 822. We're talking to Hanan, who is my guest this morning. She's going to be staying with me after the break as well, inshallah. She's a filmmaker, she's a writer, she's a freelance multimedia journalist, and she's graduated from the Muslim Women in Media cohort from the University of California. She's been talking to me about language in the media, and in particular, we've been reflecting on the language used in response by the media, the mainstream media, in light of the terrorist attack that happened in the Christchurch masjid in New Zealand. Now, Hanan will stay with me and we'll be having further conversations with her, but please feel free to join me on 07779 481 822 if you'd like to join in with any of those conversations this morning. We're talking National Awkward Day, we are talking Companies That Care Day, and we're also talking about language used in the media. Now, folks, there is also a peace vigil happening today at 2 p.m. at Luton Town Hall, organised by the Luton Council of Faiths in light to the incident, the massacre or the terrorist attack that happened on Friday. I'm also going to be talking to Hanan about Jacinda Ardern banning automatic rifles as well. Is that the way forward? Inshallah, join in with all the conversations with me and Hanan on the Urban Kube, inshallah, straight after this break. So, assalamu alaikum. Join you then. Bye-bye.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz and you're listening to an Inspire FM podcast.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. It's 11 o'clock, Monday, 18th of March, and you're listening to me, Shemiza, taking you all the way up to 12 o'clock on Inspire FM, the Urban Kube show. Today's show is in memory of the lives lost in the terrible terror attack that happened in New Zealand on Friday at the Christchurch Mosque. Today's show, we're kind of reflecting on language used in the media. Language used in the media with journalist, writer, filmmaker Hanan Abdel Khalek. She has been with us on the first half of the show, discussing with us the changing narrative and her experience graduating from the Muslim Women in Media cohort at the University of California. She's joining me this morning all the way from London, mashallah. Not from California, folks, but from London this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure having her, sharing with me her expertise. Now, apart from Hanan, I'm also going to be joined all the way from Manchester
after 11:30, a mother who's driving her children's Olympic success. Yes, you heard it. I'm going to be joined by no other than Sumera Asghar, who is an artist, a very well-established artist under the name of Emanza Art. She's a contemporary abstract artist, and she has two fantastically talented children who are national champions and ready in preparation for Olympic gold medals as well, inshallah. On today's show, we're talking national days. We are talking about awkward moments, guys. Has there been an awkward moment in your life that you'd like to share with me this morning? Plus, Companies That Care Day. Now, we are a charity community radio station and we care. We totally care. We care about your views, your thoughts, and the way you see the world. Share with us your thoughts this morning. We'd love to hear from you. I want to care about what you have to say on 07779481822. We're going live and direct across Luton surrounding areas, Peterborough, Sheffield and Nottingham, with a repeat at 8 p.m. We're Facebook Live, but just the banner of the show because I have no guests in the studio this morning, just over the phone. And over the phone we have this morning is no other than the very, very awesome Hanan Abdel Khalek. Assalamu alaikum, Hanan.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you
for having me.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for staying on the line and continuing the conversation this morning with me, which has been quite an eclectic journey. We've had some highs and we've had some lows, obviously in response to Friday's terror attack, which has really had a massive big impact on not just the Muslim community, but globally as well. And you're a journalist who's also very, very aware of the way media projects its stories, its narratives, and just having a quick overview of the conversation that we had earlier on. Your thoughts on the way the media has kind of taken on board the terror attack that's happened in New Zealand and its response to Islamophobia?
I think it's been... So I think in terms of social media, there's been a very kind of mixed response. Mm-hmm. I think it's really saddening to see how, when anything is in response to a group of Muslims being affected by something, it seems less important as opposed to when it's a group of, or any other group, unfortunately. Obviously this has been set by the media, this kind of precedent has been set, and that's what the institutionalized part of it is. And I think people don't even realize there's that kind of subtle prejudice towards Muslims and non-Muslims when, anyone's a victim. It should be that it's the same thing, we're all human beings at the end of the day. So I think there has been a kind of split in how people have responded. It's almost like people are like really upset and saddened by what's happened. But at the same time, there's been a lot of silence where there normally isn't silence. So I think that's quite confusing and conflicting for people because it's just like, it's a human life at the end of the day, innocent lives, and it's horrific.
Now, social media has been quite interesting to observe because that's where a lot of us get our news feeds from. So it plays a predominant role in news narrative. And one thing I kept seeing was the fact that people are mentioning selected outrage, that there has been no profile images by Facebook to put up regarding what happened in New Zealand in comparison to the attack that had happened in Paris. Did you see the same? Did you feel the same?
Okay, again, I'm probably the worst person to ask right now just purely because I've been working.
Switch the social media off.
Honestly.
Where do I get these guests from? Next!
I'm so sorry, but from what I've gathered, and obviously I still do follow a lot of it, and a lot of my friends have been commenting, and just many people in general, you do see that there is a selective outrage, and I think one of the worst parts of it is how quickly the actual video spread as opposed to just having respectful kind of messages. It was just more the really horrific kind of reality of people almost becoming emboldened and spreading something that's so vile and horrific. So I think that's what really there was much more respect for the victims with the Paris attack, for example, and not wanting to share just some of the horrific images from what happened. So yeah, I would say yes, there is definitely selective outreach.
But then social media, Facebook should have had a responsibility in not allowing this content to be shared. Now, normally images like that or anything in particular of anything so gruesome are instantly removed. But for some reason, this was allowed to continue. May our thoughts, our prayers are with the lives that are lost and also the families that are grieving, and may Allah give them sabr, and may Allah grant the shaheed, the martyrs. That's how they've been described. They've been described as martyrs in the house of worship, straight to heaven, inshallah, Jannat Firdaus. There is a peace vigil, folks, happening today in Luton in solidarity with the community of Luton, the Muslim community and the wider community, and also just thinking about those members of the New Zealand community who've been impacted by this. It's an opportunity to kind of stand in solidarity. It's happening at 2 p.m. outside Luton Town Hall. If you're able to make it, please do so, inshallah. It is about kind of reaching out and connecting with people, and we do need to continue as Muslims carrying on with our lives as best and as normal as we possibly can. The question I wanted to ask you, Hanan, there is normality after this, right?
Globally or just in...
Globally, generally?
I mean, the sad part is that, yes, people forget very quickly. You know, they always say in social media world, it's been, a couple of days, but it seems like a couple of months, you know? I think people... That's the whole part of being desensitized to these things. I think it's a double-edged sword to be on social media. I don't think we should ever have to normalize these really gruesome and horrific realities that we're dealing with. These are like unnecessary things that we've created in this world as man, you know? Like, we have problems, we have earthquakes, we have global warming, we have like these horrific natural disasters that are happening that we need to deal with. And on top of that, we're creating more problems for ourselves. So I guess that the worst part is that, yes, things will go back to normal. People will forget until the next attack, and then all of this will be brought up again. But also, I know that, like, you know, globally, we need to heal as Muslims, you know, like these are not normal images. These are not normal things to have to understand and accept it for ourselves and for our brothers and sisters either. So I think healing collectively and talking it out and trying to make sense of it and understanding it and feeling your pain. And there's been a lot of people talking about healing lately, and I do think that's really important, because I think when we're exposed to this kind of trauma, it can affect us, even on a very minuscule level. It can still affect us.
And it is trauma, and we are grieving as an ummah and as humanity. And how do you, and the Muslim community, it's not something quite familiar, is it, counselling in when incidents like this happen? What would you suggest that people kind of...
I think so. For example, I know that Amalia, the online platform that amplifies the voices of Muslim women, I know that I think they were having a healing day where they just a soul session. I think it's today actually.
Okay.
And they just invited Muslims to come together and just to talk and have some tea and just you know, like talk about it, talk it out. So I think finding those supporting kind of groups and groups of people that you can kind of get together, even if it's just a bunch of your friends, you know, come together, have a chat, talk it out. Even myself, so I was working when it happened, and I remember like having to keep wanting to talk it out with someone, you know, like just talk about it, you know. And that's just you trying to make sense of what's happened and why you're feeling that way and why you're saddened. And I remember later on that day, I think I went to Jummah, and it was almost like it compelled me to want to go to Jummah even more.
Yeah, a relief to be around, because if you're the only Muslim in the office, it's quite testing, isn't it? And do you think?
Yeah, because they don't understand.
And do you think today is National Companies That Care Day? Do you think this is something they need to take into consideration to enable people to have that time to kind of just like take a step back, give them a bit of breathing space, allow them to just have some time out?
Yeah, and I think like it depends where you're working, because I know like a lot of the startup culture is really kind of friendly and warm, and like I'm sure like if you're in a startup and this happened, it would be almost be like, you know, have a cup of tea, sit around, you know, like really talk out. I remember Amalia would do that. You know, it's really important to talk things out and make sure you understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. But also I think in non-Muslim companies, I think, you know, the Islamophobia is already like subtly bubbling up. You hear the prejudice in some of the jokes that are made. And I think just being mindful of yourself, being self-aware enough to not make insulting jokes that mean nothing to you but everything to that person will be transformative in that environment. And just, you know, being nice, just, you know, asking the person, how are you dealing with things? I had somebody actually from work ask me about the attacks, which was really nice of him. Like, he didn't really have to, but he asked about it, and he was just, you know, kind of extending his condolences, and it was.
And that's a beautiful
nice
thing.
moment.
It just takes that to feel as if, you know what, you're part of a community. You know, people care, and care is something we want to kind of really embody. You know, across the country. You know, Brother Tariq this morning. We were just in the break, we were talking about integration. How are we really integrated? And I get frustrated when I actually hear that term, because I just feel that we are fully integrated. How much more integration do you want, people?
What do you need?
I know. And I suppose his point was just, okay, well, find out who your neighbour is. Just go around, invite them round. Just simple as that. That's all you need to do. And I'm like, you know, because some people just don't even know who their neighbours are. But I suppose that's different if you have people moving into a property that's like rented out, but if it's long-term neighbours, then inshallah do so. Now, you've mentioned mindfulness, you've talked about globalization, and you've also talked about startup companies. Now, we are looking at national working weeks, reducing them to 4 days, which I'm going to talk to you in a moment about, but also companies that care. Now, ethical fashion is something that you're quite passionate about, and mashallah, you're actually doing a documentary around it. Why would you feel you need to do one?
I think because it's one of those topics that's a bit like avocados. It's almost
I'm actually allergic to them. Honestly, I'm not lying.
I'm so sorry, but I hate avocados. That mushy kind of texture. Don't like it. Anyway, I feel like giving avocados as an example, it's almost like it's become a fad, you know.
Yes.
And I feel like it's a fad even to be interested in ethical fashion and you know, sustainability and that kind of thing, which is fine. Like if that's your thing, if you're interested in being fashionable and at the time, cool, because it means that you care right now.
Yeah.
And that's better than nothing. So I'm trying to kind of drum in these ideas of like how much our hands are impacting someone halfway across the world without us even realizing it or giving mind to it. And I believe that if you keep drumming an idea into somebody's head or planting those seeds, one day they're going to like think about it and think, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need to buy this. And so I'm really just doing the small bit that I can in raising awareness in what we can each do individually to make, you know, the world a better place, so that people are not dying or hurt as a result of having to work crazy hours, and also that you know global warming isn't occurring as a result of our own actions too. So it's just only good can come from being mindful of our consumer decisions, basically.
And mindfulness is the key word. Forget avocados. Let's just hashtag mindfulness, because those green things are just like evil.
I don't like them.
No avocados were hurt or damaged in the live airplay of the show. But on a serious note, what is it that we can do, Hanan?
Okay, so like a few things. I think just as a start, stop overspending things that we don't need. And I think one trick that really helped me, because I'm like an ex-shopping addict. I fully am. So one thing that helped me is that when I've been online, I have put everything in a basket and then I sleep on it. Okay. And then that takes away that impulse of wanting to buy it. And then when you come to it the next day or the day after, you're like, you know what? I don't really need that. And so that is helping your general impulse inside to buy, to fill a need.
Wow.
And then on the other side of things, just pledge to yourself that if you're going to buy an ethical outfit, let's say, that's going to be more expensive because the production to make that will have been more. If it's ethical, it's going to be more expensive. So, but this means that you're going to get a product that is going to last for longer, so it's going to be sustainable.
And you'll care for it because you've paid a little bit more money for it.
Exactly. There it is. And I think we value the things that we've saved up for, like designers. We value those. And things like Primark, unfortunately, we don't. We wear it a couple of times and we chuck it out and then we get another one.
And their stores are getting bigger and bigger.
Exactly. So that can only mean more workers.
And more fast fashion and more filling those landfills with garments that are not biodegradable and the toxins go into the earth.
Exactly.
I kind of know where you're coming from, my dear. But it's so tough. It's really, really tough. So what sorts of things? Now, you're a ex-shopping addict. What more were you able to do?
With what?
As in, like, reduce your shopping habits with fast fashion?
Right. Okay, so it's a couple of things. You have to really reframe how you see your money, because I think, it's a whole backstory. My backstory is that I was born in the 90s. That was a time when mass production happened and things got cheaper. So, we could access things like Nike, and we could access things like these brands that were imprinted on us that we loved, So I think so now that I've grown up and I've got my own money, it's like, oh, I'm going to treat myself to all these brands that I couldn't have when I was younger. And I think what happens is you need to kind of be mindful of, okay, how am I spending this money? How can I invest it in my future? Because I think when you realize when it comes to the end of the month and you're in a bit of a tight spot because of you've overindulged in something you don't need, it can really impact your life. And so I think one of the key things is stop looking at things like Instagram and people online who are selling you things that you don't need, because they have the money for it and you might not. That's number one.
And wow. Yeah. And it's being consumer conscious. And the thing is, we have a lot of, no offense to hijabi sister bloggers, right?
Yeah.
You're doing your thing, but you're also, would you agree, they're pushing consumer spending?
Absolutely. I agree. And this is why I decided to make this documentary about modest fashion, because I believe that modest fashion, the only thing that makes it modest is the fact that it's on Muslim women. But I think, generally speaking, it's fast fashion. That's all it is. I don't think there's any difference to modest fashion.
Am I allowed to give you a clap for making that conclusion? Because I've been going on and on and on and on about it, but nobody's listening to me.
This is the point. I don't think anyone. I personally don't think anyone's going to listen to me. But I think I'm gonna start planting the seeds anyway and see where they fall.
Wow.
I think that's where
she's good. I like this journalistic thing. I mean, she's been trained in California, people, so she's going to drop those lyrics. So we've got to 1. We're moving on to 2. What else do we need to be doing?
Okay, so we have So I think that the major thing is being mindful of like what you're looking at, what you're exposed to, what you want. And it's just reframing how, honestly, like it's very simple. It's reframing how you view money and how it should be spent. But also it's not being in denial, because I think I've been in denial for so long about it that it almost became like, it's almost like, no, I'm fine. I'm on top of it. It's just because I enjoy shopping. But it's not. I think you fully are tied into the system. And if you think about it, why do we shop? They are for kind of vanity reasons. It's not like, oh, I'm really cold, I need a coat. It's like, oh, that coat looks really lovely on that blogger. I want that. I want to feel what she feels when she wears it. I want to look like that. And so it's very much vanity reasons. So I think it's just kind of taking a step back from that and understanding what you need and what you do not need. That's really what I would come down to. So I think that the top tips are put things in the basket, don't actually pay for it. Finance hygiene, being smart with your money. Stop looking at advertising. It's shoved in your face all the time. You don't need more of it on Instagram because those people are a lot more wealthy than us. I'm just going to put it like that. Yeah. They can afford to waste money like that. And you can't, I make a point actually where I'm like, we're not, young women, because I think young women especially are probably one of the target demographics for this, because,
they have surplus cash unless maybe if they're not married and they don't have children and they're just in professional careers, so forth.
Like, the worst part, I talk about how like it's almost it's exploitation in the sense that these YouTubers have very young audiences, and so they sell their merchandise, and the audience, they're probably kids or a little bit older.
Right.
They've got pocket money. They ask their parents for money, so that what's happening here is that the blogger or whoever, that they're a lot more wealthy than the people that they're asking to give them money. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then so there's very young people, impressionable people buying when they don't need to buy.
And they're not going to tell the real truth, are they? I mean, they did say on social media, like bloggers have got to say that they've been endorsed by a company to make sure that that's a little bit more clear. But it's kind of educating young people about how they're not called bloggers anymore. They're called influencers are influencing. Wow. And the irony here is like you are an influencer if you have like, over 10,000 followers. But if you're doing like, community radio, you're not really an influencer. So that doesn't like avocados.
I think you're an influencer, honestly, no, and it's true because like what you're doing here is like it's an exchange of ideas and thoughts, and that's quite transformative. To change someone's mind through conversation. That's important, and I wish that more bloggers did that. To be honest, to be mindful of their platform and use it in a really positive way.
For social action and, things like climate change, because there was a national climate change strike. Young people were on the streets. We had Luton Town Hall with a number of children fighting for climate change. And your thoughts on that? Because Hanan, you are an activist. You've been out there doing your walks and now seeing a younger generation, school-age kids, striking for climate action.
That's amazing. I mean, look, one thing that I really wanted to just talk about, just on the back end of the last, of the influencers thing, I think one thing that's so important is that we are all part of the problem. Okay. And I think acknowledging that there's no blame. Of course. Because we can't help it. In fact, we were brought up on this culture and this system. And I think the only way to kind of move past it is to collectively be better, to be our best selves,
Mashallah.
So, yeah, I think it's amazing to see so many young people being more active. Honestly, I think Generation X are doing bits in society. They're much better than us millennials. Or is it Z? Sorry.
I don't know. I can't keep up. Don't even ask me what I am. I'm like prehistoric dinosaur lady. I've just given up. I'm a 70s baby, so don't even know what that era is.
But they are, honestly, like, my younger sister and her friends, and I see how different they were to us when we were younger. And I think that is because of exposure to social media and exposure to more knowledge and education and understanding and self-awareness. And it's great to see. It's a positive thing. So I have a bit of hope for the future, the next generation.
Inshallah. When we've got advocates like yourself who are so quite sensible and lateral with their thinking and actually can see the bigger picture, then inshallah, may you strengthen in your wisdom and your words to inspire this next generation, because you're going to be saving them a lot of money.
Hopefully.
And the environment. So when
exactly.
is this documentary going to be finished, completed and ready for us to watch?
So I would say in the next year, I want to round it up. I'm still in the process of getting different interviews and speaking to different people. So it's a process. I kind of finished my initial trailer, which was about 15 minutes.
Oh, cool.
So that's done. But I think I just need to focus more on the direction it's moving in, because sometimes these documentaries, they kind of formulate themselves.
Yes.
So I'm allowing it to kind of go in the direction that it needs to go.
And there's always new people that you discover and see.
Exactly.
And I might have to
new ideas.
Yeah, I have to introduce you to somebody, because there is a sister who's doing remarkable things in America. She's actually done some talks in the UK about ethical fashion as well.
Is her name Huda Katabi?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Oh, she's amazing.
I need her on the show. Can you make it happen?
I'll try.
Definitely. This is an off-air conversation, people. I do apologise. Now, we are heading to the break, and I just want to say thank you so very much, Hanan, for joining me this morning.
I've really enjoyed myself.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, folks. We're heading to a break, and I'll be joined by another absolutely fabulous guest talking to us about driving her children to Olympic success and art.
We are young.
We are powerful.
We are female. We are Muslims. We are Sisters Speak, destroying the stereotype of stigmatized Muslim women.
Join us live every Tuesday from 6 p.m, where we discuss our opinions on current events and issues we feel are important and relevant.
So tune in on 105.1 FM or Facebook Live and catch our podcast on iTunes or Spotify.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. It's 10:30, Monday 18th of March, and you're listening to me, Shemiza, on Where Else, the Urban Kube, brought to you on Inspire FM. We're going live and direct to the lovely people of Luton surrounding areas, Peterborough, Sheffield and Nottingham this morning. Thank you so very much for joining me on the show and allowing me to keep your company. It's been quite an interesting show so far. We've had quite an emotional roller coaster ride, especially in reflection to the horrendous terror attack that took 51 innocent people's lives on Friday in New Zealand. This has really shaken the ummah. Locally, nationally and globally. And on today's show, we were reflecting with Brother Tariq, who spoke to us about a peace vigil that's been held in memory of the lives lost via this horrific terror attack, and also in memory, in thoughts and prayers for the families as well impacted by this. It's a peace vigil that's happening at Luton Town Hall at 2 p.m. and it is being organised by the Luton Council of Faiths. Please do take the opportunity to go down there if you're feeling that you just want to connect with the local community, who inshallah is a beautiful community of Luton. Is made up of not just Muslim but the wider community as well, that inshallah will hopefully be there as well. And there are many people across the country, non-Muslims, who have reached out and shown their compassion, their empathy and their thoughts and words of kindness. We're seeing so many people doing so, and may that continue. Now, if you feel that you need to speak to us or speak to somebody, feel free to please get in touch with us, and we're more than happy to kind of speak to you. If you feel that you just feel that you need somebody to kind of listen to you about how you're feeling, because it is a traumatic experience, and we are grieving as an ummah. There are many people who will take a lot longer to kind of adapt to what has happened. So we had the conversation with Hanan Abdel Khalek, who talked to us about fast fashion, because she's doing a documentary on consumer consciousness, mashallah. We also talked to her about her role as a multimedia journalist, as she had graduated from the University of California from the Muslim Women in Media cohort, and we talked about the language dynamics, especially across the media at the moment in reference to this horrific attack. We also talked about the very remarkable Jacinda Ardern, the youngest female Prime Minister, and she is and the way she has shown empathy in light of this attack, and the way she's kind of, embodied her role as a great leader, mashallah. But it doesn't stop there, guys. The conversations are still continuing on today's show. We are talking about awkward moments. It's National Awkward Moments Day. Have you experienced an awkward moment as a parent, as a worker, as a member of your family, as a friend, or, in your marriage? Would love to hear from you. I will be rolling over some of those conversations that have been sent to me via WhatsApp. It's 07779 481 822. Plus, we're also talking about companies
companies that care? Are you part of a company that cares? And how do you feel about having the working week reduced to 4 days? Because lots of British firms are actually switching over to a 4-day working week. Now, another article that I've come across that really quite surprised me, as a working mother, a study claims working mums are more likely to have obese children. Yes, working mums are more likely to have obese children. Now, in 2016, 41 million children were known to be obese, which has been tripled worldwide since 1975. And the study is claiming that 29% of children don't eat breakfast regularly if they're children of working parents. I think I need to speak to a working parent, mashallah, who's really making her mark, not just in the world of art, because she is the founder of Amanza Art that made a mark at the Bute Street Film Festival event in Luton over the weekend. Her name is Sumera Asghar. She's a contemporary abstract artist all the way from Manchester, but she's also an athlete herself who's driving her children to Olympic success. It can't get better than that, can it? Assalamu alaikum, Sumera.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for that amazing introduction.
So, have you jogged all the way to pick up the phone this morning? Because you know what, I am so taken aback by your talents. Mashallah, mashallah. You're an abstract. You're a contemporary abstract artist, and your work is phenomenal. And I discovered your artistry just by chance via a wonderful lady by the name of Ray Lever, who posted it on Instagram. And this was an Islamic art piece, which was just so divine. And the light was really embodied in this, which we're going to find out a little bit more about that because you're going to describe it a little bit better.
Okay.
than me, but you're also a mother of talented athletes as well. You're you're a national basketball player formerly, and also a kickboxing instructor.
I'm actually training kickboxing. I'm not exactly an instructor. I actually train. So whilst my kids are having their sessions, I'm also part of the sessions because they've moved up to adult classes, so I take the adult classes with them. So rather than sitting on the side watching them train, I'm training with them.
I love that.
So I'm part of what they're doing. So it sort of it gives me a bit of more of an understanding of how they need to train. So if they need tips and on how to go forward or how to work better at a certain strategy, then obviously I'll know more about it because I'm also training.
Wow. Now, you are a clear example of a mother whose children are definitely not obese. I mean, what's your thoughts on this article, Sumera?
I don't know, when you said that, I was a bit like, because I'm very much fitness motivated. And I've got my children into a lot of physical activities and stuff. And I'm also working. I don't really relate to that, but I could understand, like, maybe like you mentioned earlier, that some children are not having their breakfast and maybe because the parents are at work, they're having like junk food or eating way too much of the junk food. I'm not sure, but I don't really know what my take is on that, to be honest.
Just get them fit. Go for walks.
I don't know if I fully agree with that because the parents could be working, but at the same time could have their children in extracurricular activities. So if it's things like if they are not picking their children up from work, maybe have them in after-school clubs. Football, rugby, hockey, running, anything. It's not because these extracurricular clubs, it's not something that you have to pay for. It's part of the curriculum, so they're basically free, aren't they?
Of course. If they're free, it makes a difference because...
Yeah, it makes a massive difference. This is what I mean, because sometimes it's like parents, especially single parents as well, it's not easy for them to like afford to do these sports activities because no matter what it is, whether it's dancing, whether it's singing, whether it's sports related, whether football, basketball, kickboxing, anything, it costs. Every small thing costs, from the uniforms to the like, for example, with the
badges,
everything. like in kickboxing, they'll have their training sessions, which you have to pay for. The grading you have to pay for. The uniform that they train in, you have to pay for. The kits that they fight in, you have to pay for. So every single step of the way, you're actually investing that money in your child, and it's not easy.
And that's a commitment. That is a commitment in itself, and you've committed.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Not to one. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I always thought like whatever I get my children into, it will be something that they stick to. It's not going to be a case of, today they've tried. I'd let them try it, but like kickboxing for me, when the kids, the minute they did it, the first lesson, they were taken back by it because it's a very loud sport, and it's a bit. I wouldn't say it's violent because it's very technical, and it's got a lot to do with discipline. The first 2 sessions that I took the children to, they were my son was 3 and my daughter was 4. They were a bit like, oh my God, Mummy, what is this? But I asked them, did you enjoy it? And they said we did. We really enjoyed it. Took them to the second session, and that's it. They loved it. And from then on, I thought, I've got them into this. I've not just got them into it for the fun of it. They're going to stick to it, and I want to see how far they can go, and that comes from when I was training basketball. When I started training basketball, started playing it, I really, really enjoyed it. And when you enjoy something and you're that passionate about it, there is no way in hell you're not going to go forward in it, especially with the support. If you've got that support, if you've got your parents' support, there's nothing that's stopping you.
And there is nothing stopping these 2 children, mashallah. There's not 1, but 2 very talented athletes, your daughter and your son. Tell us a little bit more about them before we move on to your artistry, because you've named Amanza Art after both the children.
After both the children, yes. Well, I've got 4 children actually.
Mashallah.
These two are the athletes, and then the younger 2, they're 3 and 2, so they're still at nursery, so they're just doing their little baby thing. And then these 2 I've actually got their own little career going on already. So it's like 2 separate lives, but it's dead good. It's dead good balancing it, and it's nice to have that gap between the children as well. But yes, my eldest is Iman. She's 12 years old, and she's just won the British Championships in kickboxing in her division.
Okay, folks, did you hear that? She's 12 years old. She's just won. Say that again, please, Sumera.
The British Championships in kickboxing.
British Championship in kickboxing. Yeah. She's 12 years old. Oh my goodness, that is so tremendous.
Yeah, so she holds the title for 2019.
Mashallah. And her name is?
Hanan Asghar.
Hanan Asghar. She is a name we're going to be really watching and observing. So that's just phenomenal, mashallah. Getting your daughter to go into kickboxing, were there any barriers so forth?
Right, yeah. Right, okay, yeah, interesting. But yes, there were definitely. When I first got her in when she was like 4 years old, everyone just thought she's just doing it for the fun of it. Like it's a club that they go to and they're just training. And nobody ever thought that I was going to be dead serious about it, and they will go ahead with this kickboxing. So I did get a lot of, why have you got your daughter in kickboxing? Isn't it a bit violent? What if she gets kicked in the face? What if a nose breaks? What if she gets a black eye? But then at the same time, I was like, I've got my son in there as well. And what if he gets kicked in the face? What if he gets a black eye? He's had his nose broken. He's had his nose dislocated.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah, his nose actually was dislocated last year. It was actually. But it's what you have to expect, that if this is a sport they're going to go into, getting hurt is something that you're going to expect. So it all comes with it. And the fact that everyone was more concerned about my daughter and her getting hurt and her face, her nose getting broken or anything, it just baffled me, because I thought they're both children. So just because she's a girl and he's a boy, it's okay for the boy to get hurt because he's a boy, but it's not okay for the girl to get hurt because she's a girl. And girls are always seen as these fragile, delicate little things, and boys are the stronger ones. Whereas in the British Championships now, my daughter's the British champion. She holds the title for 2019, and she's a girl. And she's a Muslim Pakistani girl. And
wow.
she's proved it. She's proved that, you know.
And she's from up north as well. So wow. So that's your daughter, Hanan Asghar, 12 years old, a British champion for kickboxing. She holds the title for 2019, but it doesn't stop there because you have another child, Hamza Asghar. Tell us a little bit about this talented young boy.
Well, he's at the moment he's doing boxing, kickboxing, and taekwondo, and he also won in the British Championships, but he got bronze. So he came home with a bronze medal, and then he's also training Olympic taekwondo, which is the under 12. So he's been training and he's also been competing. So he's had his first taekwondo competition, which was last month, and he came home with a silver.
Mashallah.
And he did brilliantly well because he's a black belt in kickboxing, and he's always fought kickboxing, but the two sports are very, very different.
Right.
And for him to just go into... Because he's a black belt in kickboxing, he's automatically a brown in taekwondo.
Right.
So so we would be fighting advanced fighters. And considering it was his first competition, it was he did remarkably well, coming back with a silver. And he actually fought a undefeated national champion. He's never been defeated, so to get silver against him for his first competition, he did remarkably well.
Can I just ask what you're feeding these children? Because I need some of that stuff for mine.
They eat everything. They eat everything. We hold back on things like fizzy drinks and stuff. Not too many sugary sweets. Not too many sugars. But as far as their diet is concerned, they eat everything that a normal child would eat. With the rice, the chickens, chapatis, curries, everything.
Mashallah.
Absolutely.
Mashallah.
My son loves doner kebabs. If you were to look at him, he only weighs 31 kg.
Right.
And my daughter's around 41 kgs, but they're tall and slim,
and
but they're
athletic.
Fit. They're very fit.
Now, from being a mother of Olympic athletes, mashallah, and your house must be full with so many awards and medals. I bet you have a mantelpiece or a house specifically.
I don't. Yes, like mashallah, alhamdulillah, we have quite a few trophies and countless medals.
But those walls are not just filled with trophies; they're also laden with the beautiful artwork that you do. You've named I understand your artwork Emanza after Hanan and Hamza, and tell us a little bit about your artwork, because I'm just so privileged to kind of just discover this, and I discovered this via Bute Street Film Festival that was held in Luton. So from Manchester, you've come to Luton to showcase your artwork. Yeah.
And that exhibition was absolutely amazing. It's something that I've not experienced before, the Bute Street Festival. Because it was quite a few different creatives all under one roof, which I found amazing because you got to see everybody's talent. And it was like from sculptors to filmmakers to the music video producers, artists, but different sort of art, but all artists. And it was all under one roof. And it was absolutely amazing to meet these people. And we've all exchange details, and we're all keeping in touch.
Wonderful.
And, and there's another one coming up in August, and I'm definitely up for that as well. I definitely travelled to Luton for this. It was so good.
I'm just so excited to know that you've come all the way from Manchester to come to Luton, and this was not a Muslim-led festival. This was a wider community of creatives, Bute Street Festival, organised at Luton by creatives from Luton, from many different backgrounds, and you are a contemporary abstract artist. With a lot of your work, your genre explores Islamic art, and one of those pieces that was showcased was a beautiful Islamic-inspired art piece showcased.
Yes, there was quite a few. There was one called The Command, and there was another one, The Beginning of Time, and Noor. But I think Noor was the one that you've seen on social media that was posted. Well, going back to the name Hamanza, because I'm a contemporary abstract artist, it's abstract is a lot to do with this distorting images and seeing things that you don't see in your normal daily life. It's a lot to do with the subconscious, and it's a lot to do with, well, my work as well is a lot to do with the emotions and the feelings, the inner feelings that you don't show and express in everyday life. But it's so hard to explain when I'm about to explain it. But
it was a real melody of light and darkness, a real fusion of creativity. The way you explored that paintwork, the way it blurred, it really manifested into something quite extraordinary. And it was very illuminated, the Noor element. The fact that, Ray Lever, who isn't Muslim, was so embraced by Noor, the image, that she shared it, and so many people responded to it, myself, and I've never seen anything so spectacular that didn't include any calligraphy, didn't include any images, was just colour.
Exactly. But this is what I'm trying to portray through my work, that it doesn't have to specifically have the calligraphy there for you to feel a certain way towards the religion. It doesn't have to say the actual words Allah on the painting for you to be able to connect to it. My take as a Muslim since I was a child, and all the teachings that I've ever heard about the description of Allah has always been that it's a powerful infinite light that you can't even imagine. It's Noor. Every time there's a description of Allah, and there's a story about I think it was the Prophet Musa alayhi salam who saw a glimpse of Allah behind the mountain, and it was just such a bright light. So the way it's always described is always light, and the way I've tried to bring that piece forward is to show different elements of light. It's brighter in certain areas, it's a bit darker in certain areas. The textures and the brush strokes that I've used in that piece is to, in some parts, show the mercy of Allah, in some parts show the power of Allah, and then the beauty of Allah through the colour, the light. So that piece basically represents light. It represents Noor in different.
Mashallah. And the way you've described it, and I really clearly saw it because I was just quite overwhelmed by the light, and it was so magnificent. And it's not the only type, you don't just work with light and colour, you also do calligraphy. So, and you have showcased your work nationally at many Muslim festivals as well. So where else can folks see your work? How can people get in touch with you?
Through my social media, really. I've got a website as well, but I find that I have more of an interaction through my social media on Instagram, which is just Imanda_art. And just like I'm just dead responsive, like straight away to my DMs and stuff like that. So if anybody does need to get in touch, the most popular space for me to get in touch with anyone would be my social media, which is through Instagram.
And that's where you actually showcase your work as well, and it's just so beautiful. And you're actually based in Manchester.
Yeah, Greater Manchester, Bolton, actually. It's in Bolton Town Centre. I have a studio space in Bolton Town Centre.
And how easy has it been to be like a mother, an artist, an athlete, a coach, looking after 4 children, 2 children under the age of 4, and 2 children who are sporting, Olympic, inshallah, gold winning or Olympic medal holders?
Well, basically, it's all about balance. I'd say it's all about balancing your home life, your work life, your children. And once you find that balance, it just all flows. For me, I find it, the coaching, the basketball, when I played National League, it was before I got married. So once I got married, I did a bit of coaching for under-16s for Manchester teams. And then I got pregnant. So obviously I'd sort of just packed all of that in. It was because it was a lot to do with physical. You're just running up and down the court, constantly running up and down the court. So that was packed in. But then once I had my children, I I didn't really want to go to work. I didn't want to have a 9 to 5 because I thought I'd be exhausted from that. It's not something that's going to be able to let me spend the time I want to spend with the kids at the same time. It just be work. And I didn't really want that because I'm really for spending time with your children, because that time is never, ever going to come back ever again. This childhood, the childhood memories, you know, everything from when they growing up from being a baby to an infant, junior to an adult. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I wanted to do something that would revolve around the children, and I'm there with them. I'm constantly with them. So my time to go to the studio is the time when my children are at school. So 9 till 3:30. That's my time at the studio, and I only do it 3 days a week. And my younger two are in nursery. So the 3 days that I'm at the studio, those 3 days within those hours, them two are at nursery. They have 2 days off nursery, which is a Tuesday and Thursday.
Right.
So I'm at home with them. That's my full 2 days at home with them.
Bless you. So you have great work-based balance, really, which sounds...
It's just all about balancing.
Bless you.
It's all about balancing it. And then in the evenings is their kickboxing, which they train 5 days a week. So I'm with them. I'm constantly with them.
And I bet you need a break right now. We are ending the end of the show now. Thank you so much, Sumera, for joining us. It's been remarkable speaking to you. And you've made me want to go out and play basketball. I want to get out there. Thank you. Thank you so very much. That was the wonderful Sumera, and it's the end of the show. Catch the repeat at 8 p.m. From us, it's Assalamu alaikum, and have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.